Hi everyone, Jim here. Welcome to my channel. Well, a short while ago, Ben from Grammaticus Books emailed me and many other booktubers and asked if they wanted to participate in a BroTube challenge. And that challenge was to show your top 10 comic book covers. Comic book covers are designed to draw the eye and to draw people into reading the comic book. So to pick out of all the fantastic, wonderful covers there are out there, and some of them not so much, but it's tough to pick a top 10. So I made it a little easier on myself, and I decided not to consider my Marvel comics or my DC comics. That would be Gold Key, Charlton, Topps, Titan Comics, Dark Horse Comics, like that, independent comic book companies. And I came up with some pretty good covers that I think you're gonna like. But as I said, covers are designed to draw your eye and to draw you into picking up the comic and reading the comic book. And the interior doesn't always live up to the promise of the cover. Sometimes the cover's incredible and the interior not so much. Sometimes vice versa. Sometimes the cover's not the greatest, but the interior story and art is fantastic. But I've got 10 very cool comics I think you're going to enjoy. So the first one is a comic that I've had for years since I've first started collecting, so it's a little beat up, but it's still a wonderful comic and still one of my favorites, and that is Dagger the Invincible, with a lovely painted cover by Jesse Santos, who also does the interior art. Now, Dagger the Invincible is a sword and sorcery character along the same lines as Conan, and it came out about the same time as the original Conan comic book. But it's really a fantastic comic book. The artwork is great. The stories are pure sword and sorcery, and all the covers were fantastic. I mean, I could pick any one of the covers, and it would be a favorite of mine. I will call this number 10, but as I said, they're not in any particular order. But just take a gander at that beautiful cover. As I said, really well done. One of my favorites. The next one, we'll call this number 9, is Judge Dredd number 3. And that shows Judge Death on the cover. And I forget the lady's name. She's a judge as well, but there's the back cover. And this cover is by Brian Boland. And Eagle Comics is a British comic book publisher. And just some phenomenal work in here by Brian Boland. There's the fold-out center page with the 4 judges. They're not the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, but Fire, Fear, Mortis, and Death are the name of the 4 judges in this comic book. And as I said, just incredible work by Brian Boland, and Judge Dredd is just a fun comic book to read. So that's number 9. Number 8, we have from Monster Comics. This is King Kong with a cover by Dave Stevens. Now, Dave Stevens was tough for me because I've got quite a few Dave Stevens covers, and I really had a tough time picking a favorite for Dave Stevens. I had the Sheena Queen of the Jungle cover, which is just an incredible cover, one of my favorites. But this one kind of edged that one out because, it's got King Kong on the cover. And look at that. Just beautiful, beautiful work by Dave Stevens. And as I said, this is from Monster Comics. This is number 1 of 6. And this was adapted and illustrated by Donald Simpson, the interior art. But just a lovely, lovely cover. The next one is from Dark Horse Comics, and this is a cover by Matt Haley, and this features the Shadow and Ghost. This is a team-up between Ghost and the Shadow in her comic. And Adam Hughes did a lot of very cool covers for her. And again, there was another cover featuring Ghost by Adam Hughes, which I almost chose, but again, the fact that the Shadow was on this cover edged that one out. And yeah, Dark Horse Comics did some amazing comics through the years. They did Conan for quite a few years, and they did a fantastic job on the Conan comic. So yeah, that's the Ghost and the Shadow team up, and it was a one-shot. The next comic is from Charlton Comics, and this is by Don Newton. This is The Phantom, and Don Newton did this cover, this beautiful painted cover. He did some amazing work on the Phantom comic. One of the high marks of the series was when Don Newton was on the title. I think the comic is still being printed, but this is from Charlton Comics. And Charlton Comics was around for a long time, from the 40s, I think, to the late 80s, I do believe. And they did a lot of fantastic comic books. And they were right alongside on the stands with Marvel and DC, and they pulled their own, Charlton Comics. They had some pretty amazing stuff. So that's just a lovely cover. The mantle of the Phantom is passed down from son to firstborn son to firstborn son. He has many nicknames, but one of the first and foremost, he's called the Ghost Who Walks because he seems to be immortal. And he fights crime and fights evil throughout the centuries. And this is one of the early Phantom incarnations. You can see the Declaration of Independence down on the bottom. And you can see he's got some ancient flintlock pistols and an ancient sword. So this is one of the early Phantom incarnations, and I love this cover. And again, there was a few covers I had to choose from, but this one kind of edged all the other ones out. What a fantastic cover that one is. And the interior art was by Don Newton. And there we start out with some pirates, and this takes place in 1776, the American Revolution. And you can see some of the interior artwork there. Just incredible work by Don Newton. Lovely, lovely comic book. The next one is from Dark Horse Comics, and this is a Sin City comic. And this is from his story arc, That Yellow Bastard. This is part 1 of 6. And that's just a lovely cover by Frank Miller. It was an incredible series. The first series that he did with the character of Marv kind of was an eye-opener for me, like art-wise. He did incredible work. He just made you realize what was possible using negative space and silhouettes, and these are really, really well done. And if you can find, there's many collected editions of these. I think the first story arc was called The Hard Goodbye, and this was the third one, I think, That Yellow Bastard, and they're collected. I have most of the collections up here somewhere, but what an incredible, just very simple, colorful, iconic. And there's the back cover. Just a great cover. And again, there's many, many awesome covers in the series. That one is just one that for me personally stood out. But this is a very cool cover. Now at first glance, this is by Frank Cho. This is a Red Sonja comic book. At first glance, this might look like original art on a sketch cover. It's not. He did a special series where he did sketch covers, but they were printed as a series of books. So that's a glossy cover. It's not an original piece of art, even though it looks like one. But Frank Cho, another incredible artist. He does some just great figure work, and this is iconic Red Sonja pose, And if you've never seen any of his sketch covers, you're missing out, because he does a great job on them. And I'd love to have an original sketch cover from him, but this is as close as I'll probably get. But that's a very cool cover. Just the black and white art on, you know, with the logo behind, very iconic, very, very nice piece of artwork, and I'm glad to have it. So that's Red Sonja by Frank Cho. The next one is from Topps Comics, which you didn't see a lot of back in the day. I've only got a couple of them, but they did some pretty interesting things back in the day. And this particular one is Lady Rawhide, and this is a cover by Michael Golden. Like, Michael Golden's an incredible artist to begin with. He never disappoints. He's done some great work for Marvel and DC and a lot of these independents, but that's one of his better ones. Very, just his use of negative space there and the color, and wow, just incredible work. But what an incredible cover that is. The rules, which I neglected to talk about at the beginning of the video, part of the rules for the comics, showing the comic covers, was that you had to own the actual comics, and that you couldn't really show the same artist more than twice. Now this next one, this is fairly recent. This is from Titan Comics, and this is a Conan book. This is Conan the Barbarian number 25, and this is a cover by Alex Horley. Now this one features an older Conan, but all the art in the background features scenes from the actual Robert E. Howard stories, and it's a wraparound cover. And there you see him on the cross from A Witch Shall Be Born, Queen of the Black Coast, the winged ape, and you know, a very Frazetta-ish looking scene there. Just what a beautiful comic book that is. And Titan Comics, and that's from Rogues in the House. Titan Comics is just doing an incredible job on the Conan the Barbarian series. The artwork inside this particular one is all painted, and I do believe it's Alex Horley on the interior art as well. Just, yeah, fantastic comic book. Yeah, well worth, you know, putting in the top 10 list. So last but not least is a Dark Horse comic, and I'm cheating a little bit on this one, but they printed 8 issues of, this is a reprint comic of Conan stories from their Dark Horse series. Now they adapted a lot of the Robert E. Howard stories. So what they did is they took 8 of those story arcs, the Robert E. Howard stories, and reprinted them in these double-sized books, and put Frank Frazetta covers on them. Now they used the covers from the Ace paperback series, you know, and I couldn't resist putting this in my top 10. And there was 8 of them. Unfortunately, I only have 3 of them. I didn't get them all. I wish I did, but they're just nice, glossy, quality books. And the art inside is by Carrie Nord, and it adapts the Tower of the Elephant in this issue. But that's one of my favorite Conan paintings of Conan by Frank Frazetta. It's iconic, you know, and you've probably noticed in all these covers, they're kind of pose covers, as opposed to portraying a scene that happens in the comic book. And that's a preference for me. Like I know a lot of people don't like the pose covers because it doesn't portray what's going on in the comic, but I like the pose covers because I'm an artist and I just love the epicness and the iconic. Like, that's iconic right there. So those are my top 10, and I hope you don't feel cheated that there was no Marvel or DC comics in my top 10, but I thought I'd try to be a little unique, and it made it a little easier for me to narrow it down to a top 10 when I didn't include the Marvel and DC comics. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody else's top 10. I don't really know who's involved yet at the time of making this video, but as soon as I find out and I put this video up, I'll have all their names down below in the description. And I want to thank Ben for giving me the opportunity for showing my top 10 comic book covers. So until next time, take care. I'll talk to you very soon. Keep reading.